Hi, my name is Julie Erhardt from Tableau Group 1, and I'm presenting on what the best Pokemon is to have on your team according to type effectiveness data. This first graph is just meant to be a visual representation of how the 18 types of Pokemon interact with each other in battle. When a Pokemon's super strong against another, it's a red square. When it's weak against another, it's pink or blue, and if it's normally effective, it's yellow. The purpose of this graph is just to see how spread out the developers have made it, so that way no one type of Pokemon is overpowered compared to the rest. That being said, we can still manipulate it to find the strongest Pokemon possible for your team. The first thing we want to look at is average attack multiplier. In battle, an offensive Pokemon can deal double the amount of damage against types it's super effective against, and will deal a lower multiplier of damage against types it's weak against. For the best Pokemon on your team, you want one with a super high average multiplier, which would be ground type with a multiplier of 1.17. Meanwhile, if it has a low multiplier, you don't want it on your team. So a normal type, which has only a multiplier of 0.89, would be an awful offensive player for your team. Next, looking at relative overall effectiveness, you just want to look at Pokemon not by multiplier, but just how many types it's effective against versus how many types it's not very effective or not effective at all against. So you want a Pokemon that's in the bottom right of the graph, which would be Ghost type or Ground type. Those would be your two best bets. Meanwhile, you want to avoid Pokemon in the top left, which would be Normal types and Bug types, so you don't want those on your team. That being said, defense is also a huge aspect of the Pokemon battles, and in order to find the best Pokemon possible, you want one with a low defensive multiplier. So here we can see that Ice types would be the worst for your team because it has such a high multiplier against it, meaning it's weak to a lot of different types of Pokemon. Meanwhile, at the other side of the graph, we can see that Steel types have a super low defensive multiplier, meaning that a lot of types are weak against that Steel type. So you'd want that on your team because it can defend itself really well against a lot of attacks. To conclude all this data, it was important to take offense and defense into account. So these numbers are a ratio of total offense multiplier divided by total defense multiplier. The best Pokemon type has the highest ratio because a high ratio means there are more types it is strong against than types that are strong against it. This shows us that Steel Pokemon are the best by this metric, and Grass-type Pokemon are the absolute worst. In conclusion, when creating a Pokemon team, you want Steel, Fairy, Ground, Fire, Ghost, and Water types, and any of these in blue and Flying type as well would be okay, but you want to avoid all of these in deep orange and especially Grass the most in order to succeed. We can also conclude that Steel type Pokemon are the best type Pokemon because they have the highest total effective multiplier.